there's a limit to how much of our happiness is actually within our control. And so the people who study happiness, I think Sandra Lubomowski is one of the biggest names in the field on this. There's a fairly widely agreed 3-part equation, if you will, or there's 3 factors that tend to comprise our happiness at any kind of moment in time. And the first is a thermostatic set point, which just simply means we know some people in our life and they're more happy, they're a little more upbeat, a little more positive. I think I'm a little bit more on that side. And then we know, a little bit more like, hey, it's going to be okay, everything's fine, so a little more
high happiness set point.
Yeah. And then we know people and they're a little grumpier. They're a little more naturally like, it's okay, it's another day, that kind of thing. But most people are in the middle. And so it makes sense that there would be a mechanism so that we weren't running too hot and we weren't running too cold. And that accounts for about 50% of our happiness were we born normal, like most people on this setting, a tiny bit more to the happy side.
And there's a downside to the happy side as well as there's a downside
more
to
overconfidence.
Yes, you're literally not as critical.
Yeah.
And so you
not
can be
as
Pollyanna.
Yeah, and you think there's a downside to being low, but people who are lower, a little bit slightly lower happiness set point, they actually have more accurate self-appraisals. So they're less likely to get caught in the overconfidence traps. They're less likely to start a business that has almost no chance of succeeding, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So when we say it's a set point, it's like personality in the sense that you're born at a certain level and there are things that can increase or decrease it, but we tend to spring back to that set point.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like a bungee cord that you're attached to. Like you can stretch as far as the bungee cord will allow you to from wherever you're pegged, but basically you get pulled back to the original location.
Yeah.
And so that is important and should be uplifting because that means that even when bad things happen to you, it's usually not permanent.
Yeah, they studied the paraplegics and quadriplegics. There's enough people, unfortunately, in traffic accidents who wake up in the hospital and they get the news that they're a paraplegic or quadriplegic. And those people think they're never going to be happy again, but within, I think the time frame is 6 to 8 months, they're usually back to their same level of happiness. And that's this elasticity Cindy's talking about, is that we do tend to bounce back to this happiness set point, even when bad things happen. This is also echoed by, separately, research by George Bonanno out of Columbia University, who talks about most people get over most things most of the time. You don't need, we need help, we need support, and there's times when we're going to need a little extra assistance, but most adversity we face doesn't become traumatic. It doesn't linger in our minds. We get over it.
That doesn't mean that we're negating that some people get stuck.
Absolutely.
And they need help.
Absolutely.
But we actually face a ton of it on a regular basis. And for the most part, all of us, even those people who get stuck on certain things, they have been bouncing back.
Yeah. And so that's the good news of the set point, is that even when bad things happen, most of the time you're likely to bounce back to about your normal range of happiness, your kind of thermostatic setting. That's the good news. The bad news is if you're waiting around to win the lottery, or to have to
find happiness by winning the lottery.
Yeah, or have Jason Momoa come and give you a kiss or whatever. Who's the new heartthrob these days?
I have no idea.
No idea.
It's you.
Thank you. That's the right answer. But if you're waiting for, if only, my kids were a little cleaner, my old man didn't watch as much Sports Center or whatever, that contingency thinking, that if then, this is a problem, because the opposite of...
You're just as likely to have... You spring back to your lower set point.
That's right. Yeah, and the early lottery studies were done with European lotteries, which tend to be a lot smaller than American lotteries, so you got to take that with a grain of salt, but that a lot of those people who won the lottery, they were back to their original happiness. By the way, inheritance will often do very little to your happiness because you've been counting on having that forever. And so you've already spent it 1 million times.
Or in my case, you're working like a dog for it.
That's right. You're actually earning yours 1 nickel at a time. So the way that this has a downside effect is we think if our kids straightened up, if our husband was a little better, if we got a promotion, we'd be happy. But because of the set point, we bounce back to that. We bounce back in the same way that if something bad happens, we bounce back up. When something really good happens, we tend to bounce back down. And so it's very hard to sustain those blips either way because half of our happiness is set point. And so that's kind of the first piece of, well, why would I chase something where half of it is genetic? I don't have any control over that. And then the next part of happiness is the conditions, but those only account for about 10%. And we should put a link to the Adam Sandler.
It was on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, about people going to foreign countries.
Going to Italy.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can go to Italy and you can sample the food and you can see the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but you are the same person you were when you left.
Right. Yeah, if you're sad when you left
you're going to be sad in Italy.
Yeah. And that's because we,
that's
we
the set
think,
point.
Right. You think Disney's going to make you happy until you get there, and then there's lines and you're used to it. And then you think, not that I'm anti-Disney, but you pick your spot, that we're going to Hawaii. But then if you're over there and you're worried about stuff back home,
you carried the luggage with you.
Yeah. And so the conditions are very fleeting. And what's left then, if we got 50% as our set point, 10% is the conditions. So they're fleeting and pretty modest impact because we habituate to them pretty quickly.
We habituate and we also carry with us
what was already in our head
other
already.
Conditions. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the 40%. The 40% impact on our happiness, which we do have some control of, the thought in our heads and the things that we choose to do. And so if you're not feeling good and you're ruminating on it and you're just laying on the couch, you're going to stay not feeling good. And so the part of our happiness that we can control is only 40%. So before I talk about the 40%, I just want to say, this is why to not chase happiness. 50% of it is genetic. And so there's nothing you can do about it. And most everybody listening to this, you're fine no matter where you are on this. You're probably normal. Even if you're geared a little bit low, you're still fine. You're just not going to be as bubbly as the bubbly people. And that's no big deal. 10% is your conditions. They're fleeting and they don't matter anywhere near as much as we think. Even the famous studies by Kahneman and his authors about people from Ohio who think they'll be happier in California and they move to California and they're not.
Which every time you tell me that story, I just can't believe that.
And the point is, the reason you're not is because you're not thinking about the weather when you're in California. You're thinking about, I got to pay the rent. I got this going on.
Yeah, you're back into life. You're back into all the things.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's this last chunk that you can control, which is fine to pour some effort into, is what you're actually thinking about, the thoughts in your head. Am I ruminating? Can I learn a lesson and then move on?
Am I comparing myself to people who are making me feel bad about myself?
That's one of my main beefs with social media.
Yes, it is. Although you've got a couple.
I have my share, but it's every time I look at social media, I see my peers on private jets and I think, what's wrong with me? Why am I? I've never been on a private jet. Am I a loser?
Which, here's the hack for that. You got to be like me. I call it my video game mentality because when I was growing up, my parents owned arcades and I had lots of time to play video games. And I would play video games. And if I were comparing myself to others, there was nobody to compare to. And so I learned to compare to my past self. And if you are comparing to your past self and you're seeing the progress you're making, you're happy.
I agree with what Cindy said, but as I'll quote two of her other boyfriends in the nerd boyfriends, which were Pfeffer and Sutton, the knowing-doing gap. And so it's one thing to know, because I know that. I know that I should compare myself to the me from before, and that's more accurate.
It's a practice. You can learn to do that.
It's very hard to overcome my genetic wiring to look at the Jones and the other cave people and do other comparisons.
You just have to discipline your brain. You can do it.
All right. Well, I'll try. But for the rest of you nerds, not like me.
You pull yourself out from you identify that you're making a bad comparison again, and you pull yourself out, and then you ask yourself, you're like, how far have I come on this?
Yeah. And another way is I don't get on social media that often.
Don't get on social media. Avoid the comparisons that hurt you. I mean, I do think that
nerds.
The good stuff in our life we're very reluctant to share publicly because we know that some of you are comparing in a way that isn't going to make you happy.
Right. I mean, this is the quandary. And I'm just to be clear, I'm pro people connecting, and I'm pro, I don't know, I don't even think I'm pro sharing, but we can have a whole topic on that. I mean, I'm pro interpersonal
we do share for
sharing.
Work. We share for work.
I'm pro interpersonal sharing.
We share with purpose.
Yeah, I'm not pro signaling sharing on to random, Anyway, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole other than to say the reason this is a quandary is exactly what we're saying, that you're not putting things that we're doing because we don't want to look like jerks. And then when I get on social media, I look at...
Also, I don't want people to look at that. I don't want people to do what you're saying you're doing.
Yes.
I don't want people to look at it and go, well, why can't I do that?
And that's one of the reasons we're having this conversation about don't chase this thing called happiness, because it's riddled. It's a byproduct, as we've talked about. There's better things to chase, and it's riddled with all of these mental challenges. I have a great life. I tell you that all the time. I couldn't be happier that we're married, that we get to do what we do. But I chaps my butt when I see people I know, idiots from high school, flying private jets, with the exception of that one company we work for where they're all a lot richer than us. And for some, they're so nice that I'm delighted the richer they get. But everybody else, the rest of you nerds out there flying private jets, stop putting that on your Facebook. You're driving me crazy.
You're not allowed to fly a private jet. Anyway, you have musical ability, and that always ends badly.
Oh, that's true.
So
that's right. I want to be like Leonard Skinner.
You have to go commercial.
Or John Denver.
Or Buddy Holly.
Yep. Or
and
all
Fats
of them.
Domino.
I know. So don't chase happiness. There are better things to chase. Relationships, meaning, and something novel or a little bit interesting or that gets your curiosity going. Why not to chase happiness? It's a byproduct of some of these other things that are more durable instead. Also, a lot of our happiness is set point, genetic. There's nothing we can do about it. And going after altering our conditions is extremely fleeting because we get used to good stuff very quickly, very easily, unless we're constantly reminding ourselves some version of how good we have it.
Or spacing it out. That's hedonic asymmetry.
Or duration. Yeah. Or duration a little bit. Yeah. Duration.
So if you love chocolate,
yeah,
you will adapt to chocolate very quickly unless you increase the space and the time in which you're eating the chocolate.
Yeah. Cindi quoted our favorite clunky term, the ironclad law of hedonic asymmetry. Rewards given consistently over time cease to become rewards, and their absence constitutes punishment. Meaning,
we become entitled.
Yep. And so happiness, we want all of you. We would love you to have a happy life. You're going to be better. You're more likely to have it going after the things that tend to produce that and not chasing after happiness itself.